that burneth all the day. Behold, it is written before me, I will not keep silence, but will recompense, even recompense into their bosom. Your iniquities and the iniquities of your fathers together, saith the Lord, which have burned incense upon the mountains, and blasphemed me upon the hills. Therefore I will measure their former work into their bosom. Thus saith the Lord, as the new wine is found in the cluster, and one saith, destroy it not. For a blessing.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing the book of Isaiah. We're in chapter 33. And I think the quickest way to recap would be to just read the chapter again. Woe to thee that spoilest, and thou wast not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled. And when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. O Lord, be gracious unto us. We have waited for thee. Be thou their arm every morning, our salvation in the time of trouble. At the noise of the tumult, the people fled. At the lifting up of thyself, at the lifting up of thyself, the nations were scattered. And your spoil shall be gathered like the gathering of the caterpillar. As the running to and fro of locusts shall he run upon them. The Lord is exalted, for he dwelleth on high. He hath filled Zion with judgment and righteousness. And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure. 1 second here. All right. Behold, their valiant ones shall cry without. The ambassadors of peace shall weep bitterly. The highways lie waste. The wayfaring man ceaseth. He hath broken the covenant. He hath despised the cities. He regardeth no man. The earth mourneth and languisheth. Lebanon is ashamed and hewn down. Sharon is like a wilderness, and Bashan and Carmel shake off their fruits. Now will I rise, saith the Lord. Now will I be exalted. Now will I lift up myself. Ye shall conceive chaff. Ye shall bring forth stubble. Your breath as fire shall devour you. And the people shall be as the burnings of lime. As thorns cut up shall they be burned in the fire. Hear ye that are far off, what I have done. And ye that are near, acknowledge my might. The sinners in Zion are afraid. Fearfulness hath surprised the hypocrites. Who among us will dwell with the devouring fire? Who among us shall dwell with the everlasting burnings? Who among us shall dwell with everlasting burnings? He that walketh righteously, and speaketh uprightly. He that despiseth the gain of oppressions, that shaketh his hands from the holding of bribes, that stoppeth his ears from hearing of blood, and shutteth his eyes from seeing evil. He shall dwell on high, and his place of defense shall be the munitions of rocks. Bread shall be given him, his waters shall be sure. Where is the scribe? Where is the receiver? Where is he that counted the towers? Thou shalt not see a fierce people, a people of deeper speech than thou canst perceive, of a stammering tongue that thou canst not understand. Look upon Zion, the city of our solemnities. Then eyes shall see Jerusalem, a quiet habitation, a tabernacle that shall not be taken down. Not one of the stakes thereof shall ever be removed, neither shall any of the cords thereof be broken. Notice he uses the word stakes and cords, because he's not talking about the physical city in some regard. He's talking about the tents. I mean, God's original tabernacle. But there the glorious Lord will be unto us a place of broad streams and rivers, wherein shall go no galley with oars, neither shall a gallant ship pass thereby. For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king. and he will save us. Hold on. Thy tacklings are loosed. They could not well strengthen their mast. They could not spread the sail. Then is the prey of great spoil divided, and the lame take the prey. And the inhabitant shall not say, I am sick. The people that dwell therein shall be forgiven their iniquity. All right, let me just mute 1 second here. I got to blow. Okay, thank you. All right, now, I mean, I dropped the ball a bit there at the end, but we're probably not going to get to those last verses. And, it is not a particularly long chapter, but feels long because it goes through a lot of ups and downs. All right, so we read through the first part about the treacherous dealers, the wisdom and knowledge, the stability of the time, strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure. The man that fears God, the man who, O Lord, trusts in him. O Lord, be thou their arm. That man knows the fear of God. We talk very often how critical it is. Because it's that knowledge that God is judge. You have to answer for what you do. Like, you understand, that is a very critical thing. And so often, today, people have forgotten what it even means. Behold, their valiant ones shall cry without. The ambassadors of peace shall weep bitterly. Those who did not heed the words of the prophet, there was all kinds of diplomacy. Isaiah was saying one thing. Very often the prophets stand alone. They're the one dissenting opinion. Everyone else is going, oh no, this is what we should do. Those who trust not the Lord, they're mighty ones. They trust in mighty men because they're strong. They trust in horses because they are powerful. People put their trust in heroes. Like in the pandemic, they tried to make a hero every time they could turn around. Oh, Dr. Fauci's a hero. Oh, the governor of New York's a hero. They're heroes. They're the one. We look to them to save us. And when you have corrupt leaders, all they really care about is saving themselves from responsibility of the devastation that they wreak in their bad governance. They don't do a good job. They do a terrible job administering the trust they've been given. And it's because they're corrupt. They're not doing everything as unto the Lord with the fear of God in mind. No, it's like, if I can get away with it and slip out the back door with a suitcase of cash, that's for me. That's the world we live. That's the kind of political operators that dominate. Because I can't say it's all of them. But is it dominant? Oh, yeah. There's a dominant. Let's call it maybe not a dominant in numbers, but in spirit that's moving. There's a corrupt spirit in the world that's moving. The world always has corruption, but there's a movement about, isn't there? I said at the time, there's they say peace and safety, and then sudden destruction comes upon them. It says in another place. But men seek peace. right? We have ambassadors of peace that men don't always want. Some men are for war, other men seek peace. It's not the peace of God. It's the peace that man's wisdom can bring, which has some value, in itself, because it's going to be an imitation of what true peace would be like, But because it trusts in false foundations, the peace is also false. And it is not permanent. It is not everlasting. And so the promises they make in their ambassadorships, we'll do this or we'll do that. We'll, however they were working on their agreement, we'll negotiate a peace with the Assyrians or the Babylonians or whatever. They think, we'll do something with our wisdom and our craft to save us, and they will weep bitterly because no peace will be made. Now, I'm not sure which direction that's pointed. I just think it's from the disappointment of, because like I said, the Assyrian coming is simultaneously like, I'm sorry, that's snuffy nose, all right. It's simultaneously like the coming of Antichrist and also like the coming of the Lord, because he is the rod of God's anger. It's been said in Isaiah, "O Assyrian, the rod of my anger, and the staff in their hand is my indignation." So when the ambassadors are weeping, this is from fear of the Assyrian. And many, we're going to read in just a couple chapters, the cities of Judah, many of the cities are taken captive. The highways lie waste, the wayfaring man, you can't travel. It's a lawless time. There's armies roaming, looting, pillaging. You have to know. They were exceedingly brutal. They were known for their cruelty. And like many people, men can be acclimated, and sometimes even by nature, to take pleasure in the suffering of their fellow men. Watching it is amusing to some people, and it can become amusing through just socialization. If you're around a bunch of people and they're laughing at someone's suffering, it tends to rub off. Lest you be, you don't want to hey guy, you want to contradict these people, these brutal, violent men, and tell them it's not funny. Oh, we'll show you how funny it is, buddy. Come here. Yeah, you laugh along. That's hilarious. And then you get to liken it yourself. Just like a lot of things with peer pressure, it's not that hard for people to be sucked into corrupt and wicked behaviors. If they have a few friends to help them along. Oh, you're being evil? I'll be evil with you. Despise the cities. I think in the sense of like that their defenses. Come on, we'll just, because the Assyrian just absolutely plowed through the cities. I think in the sense of they're just a little thing. My hand hath found as a nest all the kindreds of the earth, like eggs in a nest that were just left behind. Just scoop them up. It was easy. That's what it said in back in around chapter 10 when we talked about Assyrian, the rod of mine anger. 11 maybe. I think it's up to 11 actually. And the wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times and strength of salvation. Oh, we read that. Highways lie waste. Wayfaring man ceaseth. It's dangerous to travel. We talked about that. It's hard to say in the end times how this would relate, like what the typological, lineup would be. Because I always try to look at that because it's more interesting to us. The history is very interesting, but it's, Isaiah is all about, mostly about the Assyrian invasion. But there's so much more there, as everyone knows. The New Testament quotes the scriptures of Isaiah as if they're about something else. And that's the thing. I take my cues from the New Testament. All right, I got to blow my nose here. Hold on. Let's actually blow my nose and sneeze at the same time. All right, trying to be very fast about that. I should have a little music that plays with that. Like maybe Spanish Flea or something. All right. He regardeth no man. You know, God is no respecter of persons, and neither is the enemy. The enemy doesn't really care how important you are. You know, that's the message there. You know, he doesn't regard the person of any man. That's what he regards me. Like, oh, you're the important guy from this place I'm taking over. Okay. That means a lot of this stuff is yours, isn't it? Particularly, like that guy, he's a bum. Who cares, right? But you're important. I should maybe treat you differently. Hey, what if I make the bum king? That would be funny. You know, because they didn't care. The earth mourneth and languisheth. Lebanon is ashamed and hewn down. Sharon is like a wilderness. Remember, we talked about the trees being cut down. It's a metaphor. He regards no man. The tall trees are coming down. Even in, like, when I say the tall trees coming down, that should remind you of, if you're familiar with recent history. In recent, I mean the past 2 decades. You remember the Rwandan slaughter from the 90s. And you know, one of the things they cried, you know, bring down all the tall trees, or I forgot, you know, cut down. Now it's time to cut down all the tall trees, because the ethnic group was made up of a lot of tall people, or at least that's what they were known as, you know, and they also had been imposed as leaders in the past by the colonists and all that. That's neither really here nor there, but people regard people. You know, people have respect for one another based on their station. You know, the Lord says there should not be such a thing. All men should have equal protection of the law. That is actually, you know, from the Old Testament. Yeah, I almost want, let's see, respect, judgment. All right. Let me explain it real clearly here. Leviticus 19:15. All right. My nose is just so itchy. I'm actually pretty glad about I don't think the sniffing's that out of control. I don't know. I know I have some studies that are practically ruined because of it, but what am I going to do? All right. You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. Thou shalt not respect the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty, but in righteousness shalt thou judge thy neighbor. You know? That's how God said it to be. And it was repeated in Deuteronomy. You shall not, at the beginning of Deuteronomy. You shall not respect persons in judgment, but you shall hear the small as well as the great. You shall not be afraid of the face of man, for the judgment is God's. And the cause that is too hard for you, bring it to me and I will hear it. It's repeated several times. 19, thou shalt not wrest judgment. That means like to twist it, you know? Thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift. For the gift doth blind the eyes of the wise, and pervert the words of the righteous. You know, Proverbs 24:23. These things also belong to the wise. It is not good to have respect of persons in judgment. This is ancient wisdom. It's long been known. I remember, but it's weird to me that I've seen Christians actually argue the opposite. Specifically Norman Geisler in the Evangelical Dictionary of Doctrine. I forgot if that's exactly what it's called. But I remember my friend showed me his entry on hell, and I was looking at part of it, and he's like, you know, just as we think a crime like shooting an important person is much worse than shooting just some guy, and it's like, shooting just some guy, you're snuffing out a life. I understand there's a serious implication. Like if someone assassinates a political leader, it's not that the man is a political leader, but they're attacking something greater than a man. I mean, they're attacking the thing, but at some point that becomes perverted, and I don't know. Yeah, because the thing is, there's a difference. There's a stiffer penalty for attacking a policeman in some jurisdictions, right? It's just to protect that office, or like hit a worker, a road worker. There's a stiff penalty for doing that, and it's not about respect of persons. It's about respect. It is sort of about. It's about respecting the office itself, but it's not about, hey, if a guy's a worker and he does something wrong, we let him off no matter what, because workers are a special class of people. If you hit them with a car, it costs you more money. If you go to them in court, they have a more likely to win. You know what I mean? They're meaning like they get all these privileges that have nothing to do with that. You know what I mean? That's more like respect of persons, because it's like, honoring, oh, he's a rich guy, he can benefit us, and so we judge in his favor. We twist judgment, right and wrong. When people twist judgment of right and wrong, that's respect of persons. You can respect persons in other respects, but not in judgment. That's the very thing. It's like, no respecter of persons. It's like, well, that's what they said to Jesus. Oh, we know you judge rightly and don't respect any man's persons. But again, it's in context of judgment. Because outside that context, there's some call for it. As I meditate on that thought. Give honor to whom honor is due, tribute to whom tribute is due. It says that also, and so there is somewhat of that. But as far as declaring, hey, two guys commit the same sin, but one is a powerful, important person, the other person is a normal person. They commit this exact same sin, and the powerful person gets away with it, and the weak and the poor person doesn't. That's perversion of justice. Oh, that's manner. The earth mourneth and languisheth, Lebanon is ashamed and hewn down, Sharon is like a wilderness, and Bashan and Carmel shake off their fruits. So, the analogy of the trees being cut down, being of one, the leadership, the destruction and the removal of the leadership, all the tall trees. That has nothing to do with Rwanda. I just mentioned in passing. But like from earlier places, it talks about the day of the Lord being on all the tall trees, on all the high mountains. Everything that's exalted is going to be cut down. And so it refers to leadership and also to pride. There's an element of pride as a tree, meaning in the analogy of a tree rising and its branches going above others. There's a sort of a prideful story going on. Obviously, trees don't have pride, but you can use it as an analogy of that. And so these are all brought down. I guess, and also they they mourn and languish, they droop, is usually what that means, like the languishing of the trees. Everything is starving for water, so to speak. And the trees are all cut down, ashamed and hewn down. Lebanon is ashamed. Lebanon is the country, but it was the region of forests at this time, where the trees came from for the building. And and again, gone. Sharon, a pleasant place for flocks, I believe. Same thing with Bashan and Mount Carmel, good pasture land, and fruits, I suppose. The shaking off of fruits is sometimes when conditions are really bad, trees will just give up their fruit early, and they won't produce to the end. Hold on, I gotta blow my nose. Does it take just a second? Okay. Sorry about that. There were a lot of scriptures through Isaiah so far where it was like talking about the mourning and languishing that comes when God's judgment comes and the bad things happen that have been predicted, you know? And they all thought, oh, I lost my place, you know? Oh, our trust in man failed us. You know, our plans all came to naught. At that point, God, you know, now they see, now I rise, saith the Lord. I will be exalted. I will lift up myself. It's a lot like the moment when Jesus returns, you know. They realize their error becomes apparent, you know. I mean, just like when it said about the hypocrites. We're going to read about that now. You will conceive chaff. Chaff is like you have wood, hay, stubble, and chaff. It'd be like the finest particles of straw, like very easily ignited. That's what chaff is for. Stubble would be a bit more. It's like broken pieces of dried out grass, and usually from not grass specifically, but usually the byproduct of threshing out wheat. You beat out the wheat and you'd separate the wheat from the chaff, and the chaff would be the beaten up pieces of vegetable matter which have dried, and the wheat is the grain. And they use a fork to toss in the air, and the chaff is separated from the wheat. But the chaff is very, it's like, you've heard of kindling wood. It's even more. It's like, very easily set on fire. I'm saying what you will conceive as chaff and bring forth stubble. The things, your plans. Paul talked about there being every man's work being burned on the altar of God to see what it is, meaning what's its value. Is it gold? Is it, it's going to be tried by the fire. Excuse me. Now that's about specifically to Christians, but regardless, just the very idea, it says there's jewels, precious stones, and then it said wood, hay, stubble, the kinds of works. And obviously, stone's going to abide in the fire. Wood, though, is going to burn. Hay, burn. Stubble, things are more and more burnable in that list that Paul made. And so the idea of your plans and conceptions, your child, so to speak, that you bring forth, like, hey, let's have a plan. We'll make peace with Assyria and do this and that. It's just going to blow up in your face. Just like we say, it blew up in their face because it is just chaff and stubble. Man, my nose is just tickle, tickle, tickle. Is this an allergy or something? It feels like there's like a tiny little piece of pollen or whatever just way up in my... I don't usually have allergies actually anymore since a couple of scriptural concept. God rises up and the enemies of God will flee when he shows himself. When the revelation comes. When that moment when they realize that they did lack the hidden wisdom. You know what I mean? When they realize, hey, we shouldn't have crucified, used as something that could be easily burned. It's a material that is used often in the scriptures. Hold on a second. Oh, I want to mute it just a second so I can snuff without you having to hear it. Okay. But you can imagine thorns, like woody thorns, cut up. That is, again, like, are you trying to make the best kindling, fireworking? It's like, I'm working on a song called "Depressed in America," and one of the last lines, as I talk about, I say, I know that hired liar is just the sort of thing that gets tossed in the fire. I'm talking about hell. Being a hired liar, someone who's hired to lie, yeah, that's definitely, you're hellbound. By the way, you are all your works in that are like thorns cut up. You're like cutting up. Hey, what are you doing there? I'm cutting up thorns and packing myself in to cut up thorns. Why is that? Because I want to be as flammable as possible when God's wrath is poured out. I want to make sure I get burned. You know what I mean? That's exactly it. All their works, all their deeds, they become like cut up thorns. And here's the thing: how are they burned like, like someone's trying to torture them or whatever? I mean, obviously, but like they're burned as cut up thorn, meaning also that they're completely consumed. There's nothing left. I got it. 1 second here. That one nostril. Okay, it feels better. The lake of fire consumes. It is a second death. They are burned like thorns cut up. The fire is everlasting. The fuel is extremely flammable. That's the message. That's the truth about Tophet. The fire is meant to destroy and devour, not to preserve and protect. I mean, it's a weird, I think I think the scripture contains that. Well, there's a lot of reasons why I've wondered, why use, why around death do we have to have the idea of the second death? And then there's also this notion of, and they shall be tormented forever and ever. I think of that as when the Russian Revolution, they took the Tsar's family, they destroyed his corpse with, is it lime? Because it's weird. I forgot it was lime or some other, caustic mineral. They wanted them the bones even to be, dissolved. I believe. Hear ye that are far off what I've done, and ye that are near acknowledge my might. Illness have surprised the hypocrites. Who among us shall dwell with the devouring fire? Who among us shall dwell? That's the thing. All their plans have come to naught. There they see the wrath of God has come. What do we do? What do we do? The truth is you die, But who among us? Well, he tells you, who can, even among you hypocrites, he that walketh righteously and speaketh uprightly. Well, it's because the message is always the same. It's like, the Lord has shown man what we ought to do. And we know what is right and wrong and how we ought to behave, but men do not. They're corrupt. We'll talk, verse 15, definitely, we're going to talk about that. But just a little more on 14. This reminds me very much of chapter 11 of the book of Revelation when it says, the two witnesses are slain, right? And then the people of the earth make merry and send gifts one to another in celebration of the death of these two prophets because they were so grievous. But then, after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life enters into them. And they stood upon their feet, and great fear falls upon them that saw them. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying to them, come up hither, and they ascended up to heaven in a cloud. And then that is right before the seventh trumpet. That's right before the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord. And right at that moment, they realize that's what's coming. They realize there's a moment of realization. They have a moment to catch their breath. That Jesus is coming. And boy, is he going to be pissed. Yeah. Boy, is he going to be pissed. Who among us shall dwell with the devouring fire? Let's say everyone's always the wrath of God. I don't want to live through the tribulation. I'm afraid of the wrath of God. I'm not. Because the wrath of God is not for me. I am a child of Christ. I'm a child of God through Christ, I should say. I am an adopted son. I keep faith with my God. I know all my past sins are forgiven, and he shows me how to walk the right way. I submit to walking righteously and speaking uprightly, Despising the gain of oppressions. There's ways to make money that are dishonest. There's lots of them. And there's lots of people engaging in them. And they will not abide the burning. They will be burned. They're not going to stand like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the midst of the flaming fire. They're going to burn. Shaketh his hands from holding of bribes, As I said, they're looking for ways they can be bribed. Hold on a second. Politicians, they get out of office and they go to work for the companies that were lobbying them. They work a lot like the people. Like the guy, the steward, the faithless steward in Luke chapter 16 or 17. Oh, whatever. Right around there. Right around the time of the whatever. But he the unjust steward wasted his master's goods, and when it was known that he had wasted it, he realized he was gonna be out of a job. So he went around and he wrote down the debts of everyone who owed his master money to make them friends. Basically, bribed them all, so that they would kind of owe him. In a way, by writing down their debts, he transferred the debt to himself, in a sense that now they owe him. Give him discounts. And at the end of the parable, the master commends him for being so shrewd, because the children of this world are wiser in their generations than the children of light. And I say to you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that they may receive you into everlasting habitations. He's saying that sarcastically. A lot of people don't want to believe that, but yes. He would never tell you to actually make friends with the mammon of unrighteousness. Come on, use your head. Oh, he doesn't mean that seriously. Yeah, that's right. He doesn't mean that. He means the opposite. What he's saying is, go ahead and do that. See what happens. See what trusting in man gets you when you trust man and use bribery to get what you want. There are some ways people make money. It's evil. Like a lot of these multi-level marketing schemes and stuff, the people making money and running them are wicked. Because they know... Sorry. Oh, well. They know... Oh, hold on a second. Sorry. Oh, I didn't even get to pause the sound or whatever. This is becoming such a distraction. We're gonna just finish up this verse, and then we're gonna just end a little early today, because it's just, I don't want to make you suffer through this, and I'm suffering through it. I just want to clear my nose and I want to talk about it. But the fearfulness has surprised the hypocrites. They're there. It's that hypocrites is probably some like evildoers instead. In the let's see, browse internet. I didn't bring it up. There we go. I'm gonna look at Valiant ones. I didn't bother to. Okay, valiant ones. Verse 7. It says, perhaps a hero. So it's not Ariel. Almost like Ariel. Ariel. Let's see. Yeah. Where's my word? Oh, wait. Hypocrites. There we go. Oh, it's that profane Chanaf. We saw this before. It's evil specifically in a very impious way. Like often translated godless. That's a good, that'd be better. Fearfulness hath surprised the godless, but they're not entirely godless. They're without respect and honor of the true God. But they will worship and serve the creature and not the creator. They will be worshiping Antichrist and the dragon, which are not gods. So they are godless, though they call things God that be not God. You know what I mean? Stoppeth his ears from hearing of blood. Stopping your ears, why stop? Again, you gotta watch it's like it's poetic. He walks righteously, speaks uprightly. It's interesting to talk about upright speech. You know what I mean? Because speech is not, it has no orientation. It's just words that go out in every direction. You know what I mean? It does. Despises the gain of oppressions. That's pretty obvious. And shakes his hands from holding a bribe. It's because bribes come into your hands. So the hands. And so then stop the ears from hearing of blood. Again, how is that? Is it just like doesn't want to watch the news? Oh, I don't want to hear about anything bad that happens. No, but there are some people who are like, they want to hear. Not like it's like this. It's like, this is how it goes. Listen, I got something for you. There's a caravan coming down from Damascus next week. How'd you like to hit it with me and the boys? Come down out of the mountains, hit it out of the wilderness. They'll never see it coming. There you go. That's the hearing of blood. Like, let's go kill some people and take their stuff. And then shutteth the eyes from seeing evil. Lots of ways the eye, oh, look at her, or oh, look at that. The eyes, oh, I should steal that. Oh, I should rape that. All those things. The eyes take in, and to the heart, they conceive. So we must shut our eyes from the evil things that the world presents us as possibilities. Some people's eyes are very shut to that. They're very, I know people who will never conceive of some things that some people do. I certainly know where my evil levels lie, And I even when I was young, I wanted to be bad. In many ways, I wanted to be a bad boy. I wanted to buck authority and be a cool kid. But I just didn't have it in me. I just didn't have it in me to be that kid, to be the kid who talks back to the teacher and gets. I never got sent to the office for being bad in class. For being tardy. I was late a lot. Surprise, surprise, I was late a lot. You never would have guessed that. But you probably would have guessed, no, yeah, he wasn't getting sent down to the office. Though some people might guess otherwise, actually. But whatever. I've had to train myself to be a bit subversive. No, I'm good at subversion, actually. That's wrong. To be aggressive, to be outwardly aggressive, to show outward aggression, to outwardly, openly defy. That's not usually, I don't have the guts for that kind of thing. Never did. I can stand up better for what's good. When I believe in something, I can stand up. I become extremely stubborn and angry and stuff. Like, if I feel like there's something unjust going on, it's like, sometimes I have trouble hanging on to my emotions at the injustice of certain situations. And it's like, yeah, I get quite passionate when it comes to certain things. But that's on the right side of things. on the evil side of things. I just, that's why I wouldn't brag too much for my part about my righteousness. One, it's definitely not perfect. Two, I don't need my righteousness. I need Christ's righteousness. So my righteousness is not particularly interesting to me or you or anybody. Because I say, oh, I had this in me and that in me, but not that. Well, good for you. It's like people are all different. Some people, the idea of like that they would see the evil. You know what I mean? Beforehand. Because I see it. I mean, I don't, often I perceive dangers and stuff like that, like, and I conceive of these things, and they're not necessarily as fears, they come and they go. Like, if you've ever thought, like, your kid, something bad happening to one of them, just flash across, the evil. Well, sometimes people have evil thoughts come across their mind, or of bad things that they might do, or visions of evil that they might do, that they embrace. And we've all done it probably at some point or the other. We saw something we wanted, we took it. We saw something we wanted it, we coveted it even. Or lusted after it. That's all a sin anyways. We should shut our eyes from the evil we see that we could do, lest we embrace it with our hearts and take it into our hands to do it. So this one, he is the one who dwells on high. His place of defense shall be the munitions of rocks. Bread shall be given him. His waters shall be sure. That's one of the things I say about the end time. When I read passages like this is my end times philosophy. That if I don't have like prepper food. I don't. And I've wanted to, but my wife always looks at it and she's like, it's garbage. Because it is all garbage. But boxes of mac and cheese, thanks. It's like it lasts for 25 years. I know. I see that. It's just as malnutritious 25 years from now as it is today. I mean, and like I said, I don't think it's a bad idea. I'd like to have better preparation. I just can't. You know what I mean? And not for the end times, just for trouble, because bad things happen. I mean, I got a generator. I trust the Lord, but I got a generator. Because though I trust God, I rely on man's infrastructure for doing much of the Lord's work. So I want to make sure my ability to access that infrastructure is as sound as possible, so that, something short of the apocalypse, I don't find myself shut out or in the dark when other people are not. It's one thing if we're all being subjected to the apocalypse. Then, well, like I said, I'm like Shadrach. I consider myself Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. If it's God's fire, I can walk through it. If it's the enemy's fire, I'll duck my head. I mean, I'm not a fool. And even God can make me abide in the enemy's fire. Hold on a second. I gotta blow my nose just because it's about to drip out my face. All right, hold on here. Okay. Sorry, and I think I lied about ending the study early. We'll just end it on time. Anyway, didn't mean to be a lie, but here we are 10 minutes later. It's like, yeah, we're not just going to finish it. We're just going to get to a logical place. Because I see these, and I don't want to give it up right now. I got it in my hands. I'm not afraid of what the enemy can do. I'm not afraid of the wrath of God, because the wrath of God is not for me. It's not for you. That's why you don't have to be afraid of the end times and the fact that there's no rapture, The fact. There will be no evacuation. There will be no flying off to Jesus before the trouble comes. No way. We are here to serve. If you think God has any interest in removing you before the tribulation for some sake, because he doesn't think you are so off from understanding the way God thinks, you need to reassess your whole mentality about serving God. Your life is forfeit. If God wants you dead, you will die. If it's for his glory, you will die. Your life is given up You have a promise of resurrection, not of eternal preservation. Yeah, we will not all sleep. Those who are alive and remain to the coming of the Lord, there will be some who are alive and remain to the coming of the Lord, and they don't have to die. But we're not at that moment yet. And that's the seventh trump, the last trump. It will not come any sooner. And we will face the enemy. We will go into captivity to the king of Babylon, so to speak, in the metaphor. We're going to Babylon. Babylon, that's why he was Babylon. Because Babylon's coming. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. The treacherous dealer will be dealt with treacherously. But prior to that, we're going to abide in the fire. We're going to walk through the fire together. We're going to walk through the fire, and our garments will not smell. Prophet Elijah, when the birds brought him food, so if I'm in the end times and it's the apocalypse of God, and God says, Paul, get up. Oh, what? Get up and go. Now, yes, now. Just grab your shoes and go, because God, please let me have shoes. Just go. Start walking. First car you see, flag it down. Jump in. Or what? Who knows? I mean, I'm just saying, God can just do that to you. And I go trusting. I don't need to bring bread. I don't need to bring water. I bring water everywhere I go. I don't bring food everywhere I go because that's kind of a bit much. We have cars. But if I was like having to town is 10 miles away. If I had to walk that, I'd probably bring a snack. Yeah, a little something for the way, halfway or on the way home or whatever. We don't need to be afraid. Our defense is the munitions of rocks. They go to the mountains of rocks and try to hide themselves. We don't need to, because we have a fortress about us already. Rod of God. Munitions of rock. I wonder, it's probably his fortress or something. Against her and her munitions, right? When we're talking about Ariel from chapter 29. All right. Munitions, fastness, or stronghold. Yeah, rock stronghold. Oh, sorry. Didn't get the mute, whatever. All right, that's good enough. Okay. They will have a stronghold made out of rock. Because natural, strong places sometimes are the most effective. And you see a place, look at that place. Imagine, let's build our stronghold up there. And bread is given. Jesus said, I am the bread of life. I am the bread that came down from heaven, the manna. That's the talk about bread being given. It goes back to what happened in the wilderness when they hungered. They had manna given them. It just was out there every morning. And there was water that came from a rock. And they drank from it in the wilderness. His water shall be sure. And so if you trust in him, you have a well of water in you springing up into everlasting life. That's why the only dream I ever had that I thought was, well, not the only one, but one of the few dreams I've ever had that I thought was from God. I was sitting in my kitchen in the time of the apocalypse. At least that's in the dream what it was, And there was no water. I was staring at an empty water bottle, and it just began to fill. I think the cap was on from the bottom and just was filling. And then I fell into a trance, and all kinds of things were said to me that I can't remember. In the dream. I fell in a trance in a dream, which is a funny thing. It's like a double dream, right? You go into a trance in a dream, which is weird. I remember I fell backwards in my chair, and it was like I fell through the back of the chair and into another place. It was interesting. But of course, the thing I was first assured of in that, and I was worried about, was water. What about water? And the water was provided. We have all the water we need because we have the Lord. He provides us with all the things we need to sustain our lives, and even can bring us back to life from the dead. So in him we will trust, and man, we will be skeptical. Then I shall see the king in his beauty. They shall behold the land that is afar off. That promised land that is afar off. Right? That's the analogy. Though the funny thing is, like, later on it talks about Jerusalem. You will not see a fierce people. It's Jerusalem. But at the same time, Jerusalem is the enemies. The sinners in Zion are afraid. Jerusalem is the same place, the place of sinners and the holy city of God. And it can't be both. Just like you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve God and mammon. So Jerusalem cannot remain a whore and a chaste virgin. Can't be both. But in some sense, well, it is both. Both fight over Jerusalem. The whore and the virgin. They spiritually, there's this battle to control it. To be the true Jerusalem. To be the true representation of what Jerusalem is. Is Jerusalem really just this whore? Or is Jerusalem this chaste virgin? The bride of Christ. The Lamb's wife. The land that is afar off also reminds me of in Hebrews when it talked about these all sought a country. They acknowledged that they did not obtain what they were looking for in their life. They came from a land, to a new land, but that was not the end of the story. They were still looking for something. A city whose builder and maker is God. The King in his beauty, in his glory. The city that is pure and built strongly. Okay, we're at an hour. We're just going to stop there. We'll begin with verse 18. And we'll talk a little bit about this, maybe read some of it, I don't know. But until then, thank you, and we'll be back again tomorrow.
These are a smoke in my nose, a fire that burneth.
A smoke in my nose, that's a funny thing to say today, yes.
Behold, it is written before me, I will not keep silence, but will recompense, even recompense into their bosom. Your iniquities and the iniquities of your fathers together, saith the Lord, which have burned incense upon the mountains, and blasphemy upon the hills. Therefore I will measure their former work into their bosom. Thus saith the Lord, as the new wine is found in the cluster, and one saith,